Caseus. Ashes of the Order. The following is a fan-written story set 5 years before the events of Star Wars: A New Hope. The following story is non-canon to any and all events in the Star Wars universe. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. Through the shroud of the dark side, light finds a way to shine through. Though the Jedi have been all but destroyed, Cassius Urshan and his apprentice Liara Cinda strive to keep their memory alive. Under her master's tutelage, Liara continues to grow stronger and wiser, learning more about the Force and her duty as a member of a long-dead order. Though the Empire's grip is fierce, small bands of rebel fighters have begun to rise up across the galaxy in a desperate struggle to restore peace and freedom to the countless worlds under the control of the sinister Emperor Palpatine. Cassius now comes to a crossroad, caught between his duty to his apprentice and his desire to aid the oppressed in their fight against tyranny. With the threat of Darth Vader lingering in his mind, Cassius must decide how best to move forth with his student in a galaxy that no longer welcomes their kind. Chapter 1. The sounds of large horns filled the skies of Bakura as citizens were ushered forward by Imperial officers. Some went willingly. Others were more hesitant. They knew why they were being called. Over 2,000 civilians gathered at a massive palace in the heart of the city, towering over everyone. Heavily armed guards stood in front of a large black stone stage. In the center, solid metal pillars, awaiting their malicious use. The horns blared once more as loud, beating drums echoed through the air. From a large door at the center of the palace emerged a garrison of stormtroopers, accompanying a stone-faced man, garbed in pristine aquamarine garments, with a flowing black cape tethered neatly to his broad shoulders by silver clasps. On his belt, the emblem of the Galactic Empire, Minister Lok Tanbin. Stepping forward, he gazed upon his citizens. Many resented his brutal ways. Others envied his power. But all feared him. And their fear was not unwarranted.
Dear friends of our esteemed empire, today you will bear witness to justice. You all reside here on Bakura in safety and security, courtesy of myself and your emperor. Under my protection, you have no need to fear. And yet, there are some who, despite this generosity, have seen fit to spit in the face of authority, to tear down this system that myself and others have so tirelessly built. They feel they are above the law. They are wrong. Today you will bear witness to what happens to traitors, thieves, and fugitives. Bring forth the prisoners.
From the palace, more troopers arrived, hauling by chains 2 men and 1 woman. One by one, each of them were shackled to the metal pillars, forced to look upon the jeering citizens. Minister Tanbin walked over to the first man.
This one here, guilty of harboring rebel spies in his own home. He claimed to have no knowledge of this. Yet, when we searched his premises, we found 4 rebel spies hiding beneath his floorboards. His punishment for blatant treason and lying to Imperial officials, his tongue will be removed, and he will be exiled to the wastelands. There, he will come to know the suffering that comes of treachery.
The man shook with fear, hopelessly trying to claw his way free before a trooper came to him with a horde-looking device and removed his tongue in one swift motion. The man cried in agony before being taken away from the jeering crowd. The ruthless minister then approached the woman.
You may recognize this woman here, Miss Vana Hatal, found guilty of stealing food from the minister's palace. Now, one stolen loaf of bread wouldn't call for such punishment. But to continue stealing, week after week, until you had stockpiled enough to fill a speeder, as though you would get away with it. Well, you wanted food? I'm happy to oblige. We have quite a special dish for you to enjoy. A puff cake, infested with parasites that will eat away at you from the inside.
The woman began to sob as a rotten puff cake was forced into her mouth, the hands of the guards forcing her to chew and swallow before she was led away, holding her stomach.
This last prisoner, however, has committed the most egregious sin of all. This man, Kaleem Novo, is a Jedi.
The crowd snarled and gnashed their teeth as the man was led forward, his face stern and unmoving.
Kaleem, I must say you surprise me. To have survived the extinction of your kind is most impressive. However, it was quite unwise to come to Bakra seeking refuge. And I thought the Jedi were renowned for their wisdom. You will meet your end in a manner befitting your crimes. The Jedi left the galaxy in fire and destruction during the Clone Wars. Now, you will perish in that same fire.
A large door opened on the stage floor, revealing a pit of red-hot fire. Kaleem looked at the minister.
Have you anything to say?
Kaleem gazed out at the hateful crowd and back to the minister.
Fire cannot destroy my spirit. The Force calls me home.
How touching.
Kaleem's pillar raised from the ground and slowly moved towards the flames as the crowd cheered and hollered. Slowly, his pillar was lowered into the flames, much to the dismay of Minister Tanbin and the citizens. He made no outcry, as his life was snuffed out by the fire. The minister stood in front of the smoking pit, the embers illuminating his figure.
Let this be a warning, a reminder to enemies of the Emperor. Your judgment will come. Submit or die.
Many systems away, on the planet Shulgana, the master and his apprentice sat atop a mountain peak overlooking the vast and deadly jungles of the planet. There is no emotion.
There is peace.
There is no ignorance.
There is knowledge.
There is no passion.
There is serenity.
There is no chaos.
There is harmony.
There is no death.
There is the Force.
Caseus and Liara took deep breaths in and out as they stood.
You think you can keep up, Master?
Just try not to get eaten by a Nexu. Rushing down the side of the mountain, Caseus and Liara tried to stay ahead of each other. Upon reaching the jungle below, Caseus took a sharp left, grabbing hold of a vine and swinging across a stagnant pond and landing on the other side. Liara narrowed her eyes as she pushed herself to run faster, leaping over logs, rocks, and weaving between trees. Soon, they came to a waterfall, cascading over a drop to hundreds of sharp rocks below.
After you, Master.
Is that a challenge? Caseus stepped back and took a running start before leaping in the air, clean over the gorge, and turning to his apprentice with a smug grin. Think you can top that? Liara smiled and closed her eyes, calling upon the Force to fuel her as she leapt forward clean over the waterfall and landed in front of her master.
Consider it topped.
I took it easy on you.
Keep telling yourself that.
The two of them continued to run faster and faster until they arrived at another tall cliff. See you at the top.
Loser helps Pip clean the nebulous.
Have fun with that. Caseus leapt onto the rocky wall and searched for footholds as he began to climb. Looking below, he saw Liara was gaining on him. It was a race to the top. Caseus kept ahead of Liara until they had nearly reached the top. Just 12 feet from the summit, Liara had caught up to him and had nearly passed him when she lost her footing and fell. Liara! Thinking quickly, Caseus reached out and grabbed onto her hand, pulling her back to the ledge.
Thanks.
Don't thank me yet. Caseus quickly continued to climb as Liara struggled and pushed. Just as Caseus placed his hand upon solid ground, Liara did the same, and both Jedi reached the top at the same time, sitting and catching their breath.
Not bad.
Thanks.
Ah, there you are.
Pip made his way over from the nebulous to where his friends were seated.
So, who won today?
Caseus looked at Liara and back to Pip.
I think it was a tie.
A tie! You know what that means.
Pip held up 2 rags and metal brushes, handing them over to Caseus and Liara.
The crew of the mighty Nebulous, working together to clean their vessel. Let's get to it.
Caseus sighed and helped Liara up as they walked over to their ship. As they began to scrub layers of grime and dirt from the hull, Caseus looked out at the early morning sun. They'd been hiding on Sholgana for 3 months since leaving Dantooine. It was remote, temperate, and above all else, safe from the eyes of the Empire. That isn't to say it was completely safe. Along with the dreadful rainstorms that occurred fairly often, Sholgana was home to the Nexu species. Creatures Caseus would have been more than happy to forget about, after nearly being mauled to death by one when he was 16. Still, they were confident enough that they could deal with one if it came to it. Caseus and the others kept mostly to the mountaintops and plateaus where Nexu sightings were far less common. The planet had everything they needed to stay alive and stay safe. A breathable atmosphere, fresh water, edible vegetation, and a reasonable climate. Looking over to Liara, Caseus smiled, thinking about how fast she was growing, not only as a Jedi, but as a woman. She was becoming far more capable as a fighter, and her powers were growing beyond those of Caseus when he was her age. Thinking of her age, Caseus was reminded of something, and smiled as he continued to clean the nebulous. By the time the afternoon came, Caseus and Liara were sore and tired, but the ship was now in top shape.
Well done, crew.
Thanks.
Oh, Pip, go take care of that thing I asked you about.
Thing? Oh, right.
Pip went inside as Caseus stood by Liara and looked out at the jungle.
Should be a quiet night. No sign of rain.
That's good. I think we've had enough over the past week. So, how am I doing? I mean, training-wise.
Notable improvements in your saber technique. Your footwork might need a bit more tweaking. Your daily exercises aren't an issue, and you've gone from struggling to lift rocks a few years ago to nearly being able to lift the nebulous. So, I'd say you're on track to becoming a true Jedi.
Thanks. So, how much longer are we going to stay here?
You think we should leave?
I don't know. It feels like there's people we could be helping.
Liara, we've been through this. We have to stay hidden for now. Before too long, the opportunity will come for us to help. Until then, we need to be cautious.
Okay. I'm hungry. I'll see you inside.
I'll be there in a moment. Liara left her master staring at the sunset and walked up the ramp of the nebulous. As she stepped inside, she saw the small table decorated with flowers and fresh fruit, and a small metal box in the center.
What's this?
Surprise! Happy Birth Remembrance Day!
Liara grinned widely and smiled as Caseus walked on board.
I'd completely forgotten.
Well, I didn't. Happy birthday, Liara. Liara smiled and hugged her master. Go ahead. Open your gift. Liara picked up the little box and opened it. Inside, attached to a leather cord, was a brightly polished blue stone that sparkled with gleams of white and green.
What is this?
I found it while I was out collecting food the other day. Pip polished it up and we figured it suited you. I know it's not much, but we hope you like it. Liara put it on and smiled.
Mwah! A vision of beauty.
It's perfect. Thank you both.
The three of them spent the rest of the evening enjoying a quiet night, free of worry. At least for now, they could forget their troubles.